Welcome to hell.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the rumors are indeed true. The actors have gone on strike. The Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the negotiations have broken off to come together for a new contract. And on Thursday morning, Thursday, July 13th, 2023, a date that will live in infamy, most likely for Hollywood, they agreed to launch a strike. It will be the first actor strike against the film and television industry in over 40 years. We're talking 1980, when Ronald Reagan was president, which is coincidental because this will be the first time in history that the actors and writers have been on strike at the same time since 1960, when Ronald Reagan was the president of the Screen Actors Guild. Which you could come up with your own little theories there. Maybe Fran Drescher becomes president in the future. He's 20 years from now, but the whole point of this is that the strike is officially happening. We've been talking about this for months now. Picketing is set to begin tomorrow morning. They put out the statement today saying that the contracts have expired without a successor agreement. And after 4 weeks of bargaining, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, the entity that represents major studios and streamers like Amazon, Apple, Disney, NBC Universal, Netflix, Paramount, Sony, Warner Brothers Discovery, they have remained unwilling to offer fair deal on the key issues that are essential to SAG members and after members. And because of this, there is, like I said, they were going to vote today on whether to strike, and now that it's since been confirmed that they are indeed going to strike. And as of now, the Writers Guild strike that started back in May is now entering its 73rd day, and there's no end in sight for it right now. Many striking writers had been rooting for SAG to go on strike alongside them in a show of union solidarity that will force the studios to return to the bargaining table and recognize their demands for a bigger share of the profits their work creates. And they tried their best. They went down to the wire, but we're now just in that situation now where this is what's going to happen now. And essentially, Hollywood's slowing down once again. I mean, when you really think about it, they're still trying to come back after the COVID pandemic 3 years ago. And now this happens, and now you just have this, and now we're kind of stuck again. We're kind of stuck at where we were 3 years ago. Only this time we don't have a virus and a pandemic to cause the blame for it. We have two sides that can't agree on something, even though the one side is agreeing on something that's very fair. At least in my opinion, it is. I mean, their biggest concern right now, the biggest concern for the Screen Actors Guild is pretty much the same as the Writers Guild. They have a couple of issues that, of course, need to be discussed. Of course, the big one is AI. We're seeing now that AI is becoming more prominent nowadays, and that's one of the things that they're really focusing on. Another thing that they're really focusing on is streaming and how that's bloomed over the last decade, and ever since the last contract was signed. And now now the studios don't want to pay up, even though streaming and AI are becoming more prevalent nowadays. Which leads to some interesting topics of discussion we're going to bring up in this particular case here. But before we delve into those, let's talk about what this means now. What this officially means now for Hollywood. How do they go forward? And what this is, when you're going to feel the exact impact on this. So let's go ahead and start with the first thing you're going to notice now that this is actually happening. Obviously, the first major thing that's going to happen now is that San Diego Comic-Con is going to be rocked by this. The celebrities that were going to show up for that, they're not going to be able to show up for that, unfortunately, now that they're part of this. Which some of the actors that are involved in the strike are also supposed to show up to local cons, like the Steel City Con coming up here in Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to be very curious to see how that transpires there. So, are those actors still going to show up? Is that part of a different thing altogether? It's going to be it's an interesting thing to really delve into here, but many TV creators are not going to be there because they're picketing. They can't come down to the thing. Studios are still going there. Warner Brothers and Paramount are still planning to show up there, even though they're in a wait-and-see mode right now. And the studio still had their premieres. Barbie had its premiere last week. Oppenheimer is still set to have its London premiere tonight. And even though Disney's Haunted Mansion is supposed to premiere this weekend, it's now going to become what they say is a fan event. So the celebrities aren't going to be there. So that's going to be one of the things. So that's going to be one of the first things you'll notice on that front. But you'll also notice that the Emmy Awards are going to be critical coming up because the Emmys are coming up on September 18th. That was the projected thing, but now that the Emmys are being affected by this, Fox is now thinking about moving the show back to maybe November or even January to tie into a potential return for the scripted shows. But that's going to be one of the big ones you'll see be pushed back big time, surely within the next couple of days or weeks. Speaking of television, really, not really much is going on in television right now, mostly because the majority of the scripted TV shows had already been shut down because of the writer's strike. Everything from a new season of American Horror Story, shows like Duster, The Penguin, Daredevil, Born Again, Billions, Zero Day, The Old Man, Severance. They've already shut down. Writing hadn't even begun for stuff like Abbott Elementary, Yellow Jackets, Stranger Things, Cobra Kai. Some shows have been shut down completely. The actors are walking now, and that means more things are going to get cut down here. There are going to be more overall casualties of shows that could film, especially not just here in the U.S., but also in the U.K. and Europe. We're talking about stuff like House of the Dragon. We're talking about Andor. We're talking about Industry. And the strike is also going to affect several other shows in development, such as a remake of Day of the Jackal, the Disney Plus co-production of Doctor Who, Lord of the Rings of Power. Although there is a belief that show has already been done, so that's ready to go. And it's going to affect the film industry too, and it's going to affect a lot of film productions going on right now. And there's more than likely going to be we're going to start to see some movies that are scheduled for specific dates getting pushed back because of this. I mean, we've already started to see it. I mean, Disney started it last month when they pushed back Avengers: Kang Dynasty and Avengers: Secret Wars from 2025 and 26 to 26 and 27. But then again, they're also having some problems there. We'll get to Disney in a little bit because the head of the company just couldn't keep his mouth shut about this. But we'll delve into that in just a second. But we've got Thunderbolts, which has not even begun shooting yet because of the writer's strike. So that's probably going to get pushed back. Deadpool 3 and Captain America: Brave New World are still filming. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not those two will be ready to go. But we're talking about some big movies here. We have Gladiator 2, which is shooting right now in Europe. You got Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 2, which is supposed to come out this summer. There's a new Radio Silence monster thriller from Universal from the guys who made Scream. We got Venom 3 in the works, Juror Number 2, the new Clint Eastwood film. But there have been some movies that have been ready to go. Like they're nearing completion. Bad Boys 4 recently wrapped up in Atlanta and is only doing pickup shots in Miami, so that should be ready to go. Beetlejuice 2 with Michael Keaton is looking like it's going to wrap up pretty soon, so that should be ready to go for next year. Ghostbusters Afterlife, the sequel, is coming to an end in London, and the same thing for the Amy Winehouse biopic Back to Black, which is by Focus Features. Supposedly those are ready to go, so those shouldn't be affected too much. Even indie films are going to get messed around with this. I mean, there's stuff like the Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara star The Island, which shut down in late May on the eve of shooting, and there's a chance that there may not be any chance for them to get back on that. However, there is hope that waivers for qualified independent films could play a part in this. I mean, you see the Screen Actors Guild fielding inquiries and applications for those interim agreements for the past few weeks, and they won't actually grant them until the actual contract expires. So indie films may not be affected too much compared to some of the big budget productions here. And of course, we're going to have problems with the film festivals and the international film festivals. I mean, there's already a number of film festivals that could be affected by this, and that's going to be something that's going to be very hard to come by as you're trying to get these movies promoted out there. And especially Wall Street. Wall Street, like Hollywood, would be stumped by the strike of unknown duration and scope that would make it hard to trade on and model into earnings estimates or share price targets. Work stoppages would accelerate the decline of linear television, as streamers such as Netflix and a plethora of content from overseas would benefit even with these negotiations. And essentially, the whole thing is that it means higher cash flows for the Higher cash flow since studios are not written as many checks. The majority of major CEOs haven't commented much on the labor action, except in general terms during the last quarter's earning calls, which were mostly before the writers moved to strike. So there's a lot to take in on this, and there's a lot to take in on here. There's a lot of things about this that, like, the whole thing should be easy to fix, but then again, you get stupid comments like the ones from Bob Iger. Just as the strike was being announced, the Disney CEO Bob Iger, who you could easily say is much better than Bob Chapek was as the Disney CEO, but even he, who has run the studio for over 20 years, should know better than to fuel the fire the way he does here. Like, he went on CNBC this morning talking about how the writers and actors union going on strike in Hollywood are not being realistic with their expectations. This was his quote. It's very disturbing to me. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from COVID, which is ongoing, it's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. I understand any labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members to get the most compensation and be compensated fairly based on the value that they deliver. We manage as an industry to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflect the values that directors contribute to the great business. We want to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic, and that they are adding to the set of the challenges that the business is already facing. Quite frankly, very disruptive. Yeah, because how dare the actors and writers not accept the fact that you're trying to force it? You and all these other studios are trying to force AI down everybody's throat. And how dare they not accept the fact that we don't want to pay them for more streaming residuals as well, the monsters. And keep in mind that this comes mere days after somebody said what exactly the studios are trying to do here. A couple of days ago, a studio executive told Deadline this, and the whole thing is that you know what they said? The end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their homes. They had no intention whatsoever to get this done quickly. They wanted this to drag out as much as they can. They want people to be broke so that these writers and the actors can come back crawling on their knees, coming out of the doggy door, just like Homer did when he left his job at the power plant, and having Mr. Burns right there saying, "Oh, come back, are you?" Like, it's one of the most ridiculous things ever. Like, you almost expect to hear Vincent Price's evil laughter at the end of it. Like, actually, you know what? Let's do this again. Let's do this again. This is the quote again. The end game is to allow things to drag out until union members start losing their apartments and losing their homes. Doesn't that sound like a supervillain's plan? Like, it's just amazing that these people who should be smarter than this really think they're outsmarting everybody by saying that, like, getting this out in the open and trying to get support behind their backs. And it's just like, no, I'm sorry, you completely have crossed the line here. And if anything, you just made this a whole lot worse by saying that. Like, David Zaslav is a stupid idiot who has said so many different things. Who has said so many different things that have just been so negative against everything that the writers are going for here, and is the equivalent of somebody who really just tries too hard to get sympathy towards him for stupid ideas. And like, we expect that from David Chapek, but Bob Iger said this. Like, this is the guy that was supposed to come back to Disney and fix the problems, and he just created a new big problem. And they just signed him to a new contract yesterday. And it just goes to show you that something is clearly off with this guy. Like, this guy clearly has a lot of things going on right now, and you just cannot say that stuff when you have the actors and the writers calling you on your ass. At this point now, they're more than willing to never make a deal with you at this point, if that's your whole plan all along. And they could probably sue you for that. I don't know the law the way the law works there, but there has to be something in there where that has to be something that you have to look at and think, there's potential that this could lead to a lawsuit somewhere. And let's not forget that Disney is having a troubling 2023 as it is. They're still trying to come back after all the hell that happened last year. Like having Bob Iger come back and forcing Chapek to get the hell out. And then you have a year where you're still trying to combat Ron DeSantis because he refused to accept the fact that they didn't agree to your stupid Don't Say Gay bill, Ron DeSantis. That probably sounded like it was going all over the place, but you get what I'm trying to say here. But and that's why DeSantis has been all over Disney so far. But on top of that, your studio is your movie studio right now is currently in a rocky position. You've had an underwhelming film, and one flop after another. You don't really have the sense right now that this guy who ran this company for 20 years, you don't think it really doesn't feel like this is the same person, because this guy has to be smarter than that if he wants to get this deal done. But why would I even think that when they're still trying to push artificial intelligence on people, which AI is this sleek futuristic thing that I know everybody wants to do, and I'm not gonna lie, there's been some times when I've tried to when I have used AI per se, and I'm not gonna lie, it does actually kind of work. I sell stuff on eBay all the time, and they just added this feature where you could put in an AI description if you don't have the time to actually put together an actual description there. So I tried it out on a couple of things, and you know what? For what I was trying to sell, it actually does work. That's one of the few times I'd ever say use AI on that, because let's say you don't have a lot of time here, you want to get something put on there real quickly, so you just want to stick it on there real quick. Stuff like that I can understand, but when you're trying to use AI for writing scripts and trying to change the core and trying to get actors on stage and trying to direct scenes, I saw something really stupid where somebody took a clip from the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark for the beginnings of the movie, where they decided to push the camera all the way back so you can see the entire picture. And they did this with AI, and it's just like, why would you even do that? Like, what service does that really hold there? Unless you were doing it for something like for like the Oculus goggles where you're actually in the movie. Maybe I can understand that, but at the same time, though, doing it like this, like, it absolutely makes no sense whatsoever why somebody thought that this was a good idea to do that. Like it's just ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous concept. It could maybe work down the road, assuming you actually have what it takes to make it work. You have the material to make it work. It actually doesn't look fake whatsoever. But if you do that, you essentially get stuck with what happened with the Flash recently. You can tell that they use really bad deep faking effects in AI, and it looks horrible. It looks absolutely horrible the way they handle it. So it's just really, really disappointing to see how low that these people have sunk to try to convince themselves that people will make this work. People will indeed make this work, when not after the way you handled this situation. Like, not after the way Bob Iger looked at this and said, you know what, I can say whatever I want to, and at some point we're going to have a deal made here, as well as, a studio executive basically say, we're going to definitely do this. We're going to come out there and say that we literally don't care how smart these people think they are here. We're going to tell them what really is going to happen. We're going to make sure they lose every single bit of money that they have, and then they'll come crawling back to us, and everything will be Milhouse. Everything will come up Milhouse, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work that way. Like, these people are smarter than you think. These people are much smarter than you think they are. Like, they are much smarter than anybody will give them credit for. The people who are fighting for this, and they're fighting for a fair and reasonable thing. They don't want artificial intelligence to completely take over. They want to get paid for these jobs. They want to get paid. They want to work. They want to make money for this. The same thing with the actors. There's no reason why actors should be allowed to be putting into. There's no reason actors should be put in a situation where somebody could take their voice and their face and just put them onto something without their knowing about it. like, Space Jam: A New Legacy tried to warn us about this stuff, man. Like, of all the movies to do that, Space Jam: A New Legacy was the one that said, hey, watch out for this, because this is something that could actually happen. And 2 years later, look at where we are now. And I'm not saying that AI is a bad thing. I mean, we just had Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and I found out recently that they actually used AI in the defacing process, in the de-aging process for Harrison Ford in the opening of the movie, which I think is a great opening. And if you do it like that, if you do it for small things like that, I can understand where they're coming from here, but not when you're trying to create scripts right off the bat and trying to use actors for full-on projects here. I mean, this is just... it just doesn't work. It's just not a good idea whatsoever to try to use that as a bargaining factor. And I think the actors and the writers are asking for a fair compensation for them using this stuff. They want to get paid for that type of stuff too, as well as the streaming rights. Streaming has now become more prevalent nowadays than it was when the last strike happened, and the fact that the studios are just unwilling to accept that, like, it's no wonder we're currently in the situation that we're in right now. It doesn't... I mean, as of right now, it does not look like it looks like there's no real reason to believe that this is going to end anytime soon. They're going to drag this out until somebody caves. One would hope it's going to be the studios, but you know, after what was revealed in the last week, I sincerely doubt it. Personally, I want the actors and the writers to get paid. I feel like they really deserve to get the money that they deserve from this. They deserve to get paid for the new technology that's coming in. They deserve to get paid for scripts that they should write on their own hands. Even if they're not good scripts, they'd be much better than having to go to ChatGPT or using AI to write these scripts that are really not that well done when you see what AI can really do. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we are heading into a full shutdown of Hollywood again. But this time it's not because of a pandemic. It's not because of anything that involved in the rest of the world. It's all because Hollywood studios just refuse to accept the fact that the actors and writers want to get compensated for this new technology you're bringing in, and you just refuse to accept the fact that that you think they're stupid. You just refuse to accept the fact that they're much smarter than you think they are, and you just go out there and just call them out for stupidity like that. I sincerely doubt that I'm going to make a prediction. This is going to continue into 2024. I really do not think they're going to get a deal done until the new year, until something happens where somebody runs out of money, or somebody decides enough is enough. We have to make a decision now, and that's just something that I thought. That's just something that really just irked me about the whole thing before this strike got announced. But like I said, the writer strike is going on in its third month now, and now the actor strike is going on now, and it's going to continue for who knows how long. And I'm saying right now, it's going to continue into 2024 because I do not see these two sides coming together whatsoever. So I wanted to make a quick video talking about that, but let me know your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of this? The actor strike now happening and the writer strike now happening, Hollywood shutting down. Do you think I'm on the right path here and talking about this going in well into 2024? Do you think they're not going to come up with a deal anytime soon? Let me know your thoughts down below. I wanted to make a video about this, so I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching. Keep the conversation going below. If you like what you see, hit the like and subscribe button. Check out some of these other videos I did, as well as subscribe to our new Reviewing Network Live channel coming up soon. And I'll see you guys next time. So until the next time I see you, take care.